All right, welcome to week 8. If you're watching this video, it's because you were gone at some point this week for English 11 with me. This is the week coming back from spring break, so hopefully we're feeling more rested and recharged, but I know it's going to be kind of, as always, whenever we come back from a break, it doesn't matter how long it is, it's kind of hard to get back into the swing of things, so I understand. This week I will have fourth period. I will have you 3 times because we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and fifth and sixth I will see you on Tuesday and Thursday. The following week after this is going to be spring conferences, so you will not have school on Thursday or Friday next week, so you get a 4-day weekend, and that will be kind of tricky in terms of us trying to navigate like my fifth and sixth period, how we're going to handle making sure you're caught up with fourth period. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. So this week we are picking up where we left off. You will have some independent reading time on Tuesday and Thursday for fifth and sixth, and then Monday and Friday you will have that for fourth period. When we left off, we were working on our persuasive paper, and you had found your topic or decided on what your topic was. You had picked out your sources, and you had written a thesis statement, and then I kind of had you start with writing a intro paragraph, but because it was right before spring break, a lot of people were gone, things happened. We're going to kind of revisit that again. So that's where we left off, and then we're going to look at some logical fallacies this week as well as doing some review. So we'll start off with independent reading time. We're going to also have times for check-in, lots of check-in and work time. So as I am checking in with people, finishing my check-ins, you need to work on your introduction paragraph. I looked through all the Google Docs that you shared with me. If you remember, I had you go in, create a Google Doc, title it, and then start, and you shared it with me, and I went through and I looked at everybody, and I would say probably around half of you actually wrote an introductory paragraph and the other half did not. So you need to be working on that, and then as that's happening in class, I am going to call you up individually to talk to you and do check-ins. Kind of like what we did before we left for break. So that's what's going to happen on Monday and Tuesday. And then the second half of Monday and Tuesday, we're going to look at taking some notes about logical fallacies. This is, as of right now, this is going to be the last set of like new knowledge, new notes that we're going to take during our argument and persuasion unit. And then next week, we're going to continue writing this paper, doing it the baby step way that I've been talking about, while also kind of starting a new unit as well, a mini unit. So logical fallacies, these are notes that we're taking. Anytime that you see underlines that are blank on your slides, you're going to fill them in with the notes that you see on the screen. So logical fallacies are going to be things that we hear in arguments that are tricky because they can kind of sound like it's a good argument. It can sound very persuasive, but unless you really pause and listen to what the person is saying, sometimes they can kind of trick you into using logic that doesn't actually work. So here are examples. There's 10 of them. Some of these are Latin words, which are going to be difficult for me to pronounce, but we'll get through it. There's 10 of them, and we're going to go through, give you some examples of each one with a definition. So number 1, we have ad hominem, which is Latin for to the man. And so you will fill in where you see the blank, underline. As a fallacy, it means you are switching the argument from the topic at hand to attacking the opposition's character. So, for example, you're in a debate and your opponent makes a point, and then all of a sudden you say, well, you're just a jerk. Like, you're attacking the person as a person and not even really discussing the topic itself. So here's an example. Global warming is a complicated issue affecting the entire world. Let's say this is a debate. Well, my opponent is a liar, so how can we even trust him? You're not even talking about the topic, which would be global warming. You're just attacking the person that's speaking. So that would be an example of a logical fallacy for ad hominem. Straw man is the next one. So again, whatever's underlined, you're going to fill in on your slides. There should already be a text box for you. The straw man fallacy is when you are oversimplifying an argument in order to ridicule the idea. So you're trying to like point out how stupid something is in your opinion based off of what you're arguing, but you're kind of oversimplifying what the argument actually is. So an example would be, again, with this hypothetical situation, global warming is a serious problem that is facing not only our nation, but the entire world. What my opponent doesn't want to talk about is how cold it is in the Northeast right now. We could use a little global warming right now. So you're kind of taking something and just making it a lot less simple than it truly is, something that's a very big, complex thing. So this straw man fallacy is going to be used with certain topics. It can be used pretty trickily, sometimes not. It kind of depends on what you're talking about. Next, number 3 is the faulty analogy. So a faulty analogy occurs when a comparison is made between two things, but the parts being compared are too dissimilar to make a fair comparison. So it's the old comparing apples to oranges type situation when you're comparing two things that at first glance maybe seem like they are in the same camp, and you might feel like, oh yeah, I could totally compare the two, but when you really get down to it, they are so dissimilar that it's not fair to make a comparison. He looks just like a scarecrow and he's as dumb as him too, when this is a living, breathing human being and this is a literal scarecrow made of hay. At first glance, you squint, look from far away, sure, maybe they look very similar, but when you get down to the details, they are completely different, and it's not fair to make a comparison. Number 4 is red herring. This refers to the introduction of a new topic used to distract the listener from the main argument. So it's called red herring because it comes from the cured fish, which is a herring, used to distract training dogs during a fox hunt. So it's kind of like a historical name. But essentially, you are trying to kind of pull your reader or your listener's attention away from the actual main part of the argument, and you're bringing up a new topic, whether or not that topic really has anything to do with the main argument. Typically it doesn't, but you're kind of using it to distract them or pull their attention away from like the big issue in the argument. Immigration is important, but what people really care about is crime. So you're like pulling away from what you're actually discussing to talk about something that is not necessarily connected, or sometimes it's literally not connected at all. Number 5 is false dilemma. This is a fallacy that presents two extreme options as the only two options. So it kind of paints this picture of like there is a fork in the road and you have to pick between these two paths, these two options, and this is all you got, and they're both very extreme, when in reality things are a lot more complex. Things are not, I would beg to differ. I would argue that in life, most of the time, things are not as black and white as we think that they are. There's a lot of gray area. And this is a fallacy that will make you think, oh, there are two options, there are two sides to this, and you only have these two options. So it's false dilemma, either or fallacy. You can either study and go to college, or not study and live in your parents' basement. It's like very two extremes, and you're making the reader, the listener, your opponent think that those are the only two options present. Number 6 is appeal to false authority, or you could substitute this word for false ethos, which we've been learning about, logos, pathos, ethos. Appeal to false authority happens when someone who is not an expert is treated like an expert. So you could look at kind of a callback to our advertising little section of this unit. You throw a celebrity in a commercial and they are a well-loved celebrity, they are very popular within pop culture, and then all of a sudden it seems like they're an expert, or it seems like they have authority on the topic, when reality is they're just a popular celebrity, athlete, whoever, and they don't really have the expertise. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Anytime you put a lab coat and a stethoscope on somebody, automatically makes it appear as if they have some sort of credibility, when you really could have no idea what their background is. Number 7 is circular reasoning. This occurs when the claim is used as evidence. So an example, you have to give me an A because I'm an A student. Because I'm an A student, you have to give me an A. It's just kind of like a roundabout form of logic that, unless it kind of is foolproof, which usually it's not, it can be very tricky because you get trapped into the cycle, and you think, well, if this is this, then I could reverse it and this would be true as well, but that's not always the case. This one's going to be hard. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, Latin word or phrase which stands for after which, therefore, because of which to make that even less confusing, because that's very confusing, it means just because something happened first, it does not mean it caused what happened next. So kind of think about like in science, correlation doesn't always equal causation type of a thing. Just because something happened first doesn't mean that it caused the next thing in the chain of events to happen. Don't invite Sally to lunch with us. Every time she comes, it rains. That's an example of like, you just kind of jump to conclusions of, well, if this happens, this always seems to happen right afterward, so we can't have this thing happen. That would be an example. Number 9, hasty generalization. This occurs when there's not enough evidence to support a conclusion, which I would say this happens more often than not within like the papers that you write or things that you do in class because of procrastination. And it's just because you're not giving enough evidence to support your conclusion. He exercised every day, but he had a heart attack. Therefore, exercise does not make you healthy. It's just kind of like a very great leap and not really valid at all. And then the last one is bandwagon, which we used this term when we were talking about advertising, and it's still kind of the same definition. Everyone's doing it, so you should too. Bandwagon is, I think, pretty easy to spot, but it's still at the same time somehow hard to like not fall into, because we as human beings want to be liked and we want to be doing what everybody else is doing and feel like we're a part of the group, part of the community. And so it's very easy to get sucked into that. So you can think of like technology. Again, I'm not going to expand on this too much because we talked about this with advertising, but you should go and fill in the blanks on your slide after looking at what I've talked about. This next part is just for 4th period. My 5th and 6th period, you will do this in a couple weeks, or I think next week, because I will have you on a Wednesday. So it's been quite a while since we've done a grammar lesson, and that's partly because it's been a whirlwind, basically, since we got back from winter break, and now we're back from spring break. So this is just for 4th period, 5th and 6th. You will do this next week. You can ignore the slide. 4th period, what you're going to do if you're gone this day is you're going to take a look at this video and answer these questions. You're going to talk about universal grammar. There was a guy named Noam Chomsky who did a lot of research within the world of linguistics, and he came up with this theory called universal grammar. You're going to tell me what that theory is, try to define it in your own words. You're going to talk about the 2 components that are mentioned in the video, and then describe the change that he later made when they talk about principles and parameters. So keep your ear out for those 2 things, or 3 things. The other thing that we'll do 4th period is kind of continue check-ins, because I've learned with your class, you're very chatty and I love it, but it takes me a long time to check in with you one-on-one. So I'm going to give you some extra time to do that on Wednesday. And then for Thursday and Friday, we're going to start off with some independent reading time. We are going to do a logical fallacy quiz. So you will do that on your Google Slides. I was going to do this on paper, but I just want to keep as much things digital as possible. So this is what you will do. There's 2 parts, 1, 2. So there's 10 questions total. Please don't be intimidated or freak out or think that this is going to like make or break your grade. It's just a simple quiz to kind of check in to see like how you're doing with learning these new terms. So you're going to go look at each example. There's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And on the left, you can literally just copy and paste. You don't even have to type. Copy and paste which of these logical fallacies that we talked about on Monday and Tuesday do you think belong to which one. So you will do that and just copy and paste it over here. And then you can come talk to me to get the key later, but I'm not going to show you in this video. And then the last part of this week is going to be more check-in time. I'm going to call you up to talk about your intro paragraph, and then as I am doing that, you are going to work on the body of your essay. And if you remember, typically you're going to have like 3 points, 3 main points. If you're doing honors, you might have more. So please don't overwhelm yourself. Just start with 1 point at a time. And all you're going to do is write a couple paragraphs, 1 point at a time. So it's going to be a lot of, or this week's going to be paired with 2 things, notes and then work time and check-in. So kind of structured time and then more individual paced work time. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know.